Yes.
Great. Okay. So I was born in South Africa in '78 and I moved to Israel at a very young age. At 24, I published my first book, a collection of short stories called Beloved by the Girls. 5 years later, I created an adventure game called Happiness Without Borders, which is a rough translation for Osher Bli Gvulot in Hebrew. It was downloaded by some 200,000 Israelis, that's about 3% of the population, and chosen as the best Israeli computer game of all time. In 2019, I published The Last Prince, a historical novel about Cyrus the Great. And right now I'm working on my fourth book, which will take place in London in the 80s. I live in the city of Ra'anana. You probably haven't heard about it, except for Tal. It's about 20 miles from Tel Aviv, with my wife, 2 children, and a very naughty dog. In my spare time, when I'm not writing books, I work as a VP of marketing for a global clean tech firm, and I'm really into music as well. So here are some of my favorite novels. Some of them inspired my writing, and I highly recommend all of you to read the ones you haven't read yet, because these are just amazing books. So take a minute to note the one you haven't read before. Right, this quote is very relevant for my current book in English, which we are talking about, King Genghis the First. Let me start with several did you know about dictators. For one of those of you who didn't know, King Genghis the First, the protagonist of the book, I mean, one of the two protagonists, is a very funny dictator, which is something not so common in literature. Most of the time, the dictators are bad. So I thought to write a lovable one. Okay, this is Sapar Murat Niyazov, who served as the president, but basically the king of Turkmenistan. He banned the public from using playback and lip sync, and TV reporters from using makeup, and as well he banned people from eating. This is a very important law that he made. Muammar Gaddafi, which maybe you've heard about, he served as the Colonel Gaddafi. He was the leader of Libya for many years, and he had an Amazonian guard of 40 gorgeous women who both guarded him and danced around him, and possibly other things as well. Kim Jong-il, you've heard about him, and about his son, Kim Jong-un, the current leader. According to the official Korean Central News Agency, he was born on the top of a mountain, and at the same time, 2 rainbows crossed the sky. The season changed from winter to spring, and a new star appeared to light the sky. Immediately after that, a giant sea monster came out of the ocean and sang the North Korean anthem. These are official news of the North Korean Central News Agency. And the last dictator which I will mention is Rafael Trujillo, a dictator who ruled the Dominican Republic, who made his 7-year-old daughter a colonel, and afterwards a general, and did some horrible things as well. Okay, so what were my sources of inspiration from the character of King Genghis I? First, so is basically based on Sapar Murat Niazov, which we saw earlier, the one who banned the grass and the lip sync and so on. It was a very funny and strong ruler. His crazy personality cult intrigued me. He had everywhere you go, you will see his picture. And another source of inspiration from the character of King Genghis was my former boss, who was a very authoritative person as well, which I won't mention anywhere else. P.G. Wodehouse was a great inspiration as well. He's the funniest author I have read. I was inspired by classic novels I read at the time, right before the writing. King Solomon Mines, Mikhail Strogoff of Jules Verne, The Three Musketeers, and so on. I was also influenced by fantasy writers who know how to create a sense of awe and adventure, such as Lloyd Alexander, who writes amazing books for children and young adults, but I started reading him as an adult, and he always amazed me with his writing. Okay, so a bit about the story of King Genghis I, which is available in Amazon. Turan Mugayev, the protagonist of the book, is a New Yorker who travels from the heart of the Western civilization to Kyrgyzstan, a small, hermetic Asian kingdom ruled firmly by the dictator King Genghis. The bond between the two upsets the kingdom conventional wisdom, outer fates, and changed Turan from a broken heart and gloomy young man to a love-struck hero. And I wanted to write something that is very escapist and far from the reality as possible. And I found that writing a funny story is actually more challenging than writing a serious one. For instance, my next novel, which came out less than 2 years ago, The Last Prince, about Cyrus the Great, it was much easier to write than Genghis, because you have in a humorous novels, you need to have both the story work, and it need to be funny as well, which is very hard to write. It may sound easier, but it's actually harder. Now, basically, this is my presentation about the book, and I will be very happy to answer some questions about the book, about writing in general, and so
on.
I think you can, yeah. You can maybe stop sharing, yeah. Okay. So do you have any tips for beginning writers?
Yes, I think that the most important thing is read about writing and to plan the plot from A to Z. I mean, to write a synopsis of everything that will happen from the first chapter to the last chapter. I think that a novelist should know where he is going, and it very helped me as a writer to plan everything in advance. And to read a lot, both about writing and see what work in other fiction book, and use it for your own writing.